Good evening, Mr. Jacobitz.
Hey, Mike, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, can you see me?
No, I cannot.
Okay, so not sure what to do here.
At the bottom right.
And go to me.
Start.
What was that, Cindy?
At the bottom left, you have mute and then stop.
I have mute and then I have start video. Got it. Ta-ta.
Now we see you.
Great.
Well, I have 6:30. Are we expecting anybody else, Jeremy, that you know of, or Jeremiah?
No one said they weren't coming, if that helps.
Okay, I thought Jerry Berg was going to be here earlier. Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. If somebody else shows up, they can join us. So I'd like to call to order the June already, boy, June meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals. And the first item on the agenda is approval of minutes from our April meeting, and we had a copy of those in our packet. Any discussion or corrections on the minutes? If not, if there's no discussion or corrections, I'd entertain a motion to accept the minutes as written.
Well, I move that we accept the minutes of the April 13th zoning board of appeals meeting.
Support.
Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor accepting the minutes as written, aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, minutes are accepted as written. Welcome aboard, Mayor. First item on our agenda, temporary use for fireworks at 1416 South Main Street. Do we have anyone present here to speak on this?
Yes, I'm Sheila Grunwald with Jake's Fireworks.
Okay, just we have the information, but maybe just real briefly give us a little description of what we're looking to do here.
We usually do have a fireworks tent in Adrian. We're normally at Mommy Street, but we are moving down to the 1416 location. And we'll be open there from June 20th through July 4th, selling fireworks.
And this is the location basically right behind the Applebee's, correct?
Yes. It's in the Crossroads Shopping Center.
Commissioners, questions?
You folks used to be at the video store. Was that yours?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thanks.
Are we looking, just for clarification, where we're looking at a 1 year on this? Or because it's the same people, but just a different location, we're looking for a multi-year? Jeremy?
Let me double check. I think it's because it's the first location, it has to be a 1 year, and then they can reapply again for that same place for up to 5.
Okay, so this particular one is for 1 year that's being requested.
Yes.
Commissioners, any more questions or comments?
I think we know these folks and we know they've done a good job. So unless there are site-specific questions, I'm feeling fine about this.
Is there anyone else in this Zoom session that has a comment or question?
Jeremiah, the fire department has reviewed the layout and the specifications.
Yes.
Okay,
We have in our packet, we have the staff review. And just to quickly go down through those items that we need to look at. That the temporary use permit is compatible with the various provisions of the chapter. And it is compatible. There's no problem there at all. The temporary, number 2, the temporary use is a reasonable use of land. Compatible with the general plan land use designation and zoning classification. It is a B4 commercial district, so once again, not a problem. Number 3, temporary use will not impede the reasonable use of the land or orderly development of the land in the immediate vicinity. This is a temporary use. It's in the parking lot area. There's nothing going to be impeded there. I don't think anybody's planning on building a building right there in the next few weeks, so should not be a problem. 4, the temporary use shall not adversely affect the adjacent property uses, building, or other structures. Once again, there's no problem there. It's far enough away from all the structures. Number 5, temporary use will not endanger the public health, safety, or general welfare. Once again, as long as they meet all the guidelines that have been set up by the fire department and by the state as far as fireworks, and I believe they have, there's no problem there. Number 6, provisions for adequate traffic access, circulation, off-street parking, pedestrian safety have been provided and will be maintained during the operation. They certainly been provided, and like you said, in the past, there's never been a problem with this, and there's certainly plenty of parking there. Number 7, the granting of temporary use permit is made subject to the conditions necessary to preserve the general welfare, not the individual welfare of any particular applicant. Once again, this is a we allow fireworks sales and temporary use, so it's nothing for this group that others can't have. Based on meeting those, unless there are any further questions, I'll entertain a motion.
I would move to approve the application for a temporary use permit on South Main as specified.
Support.
We have a motion, we have support. Any questions from the commissioners on the motion? Hearing none. Jeremiah, roll call vote, please.
Jacobitz,
Yes.
Beely,
Yes.
Strayer,
Yes.
Gillespie,
Yes.
Berthold.
Yes,
Motion passed unanimously.
you have your temporary use for your fireworks.
Thank you very much.
Next item on the agenda is another fireworks. Scroll down here to get to them. This is for 1535 West Maumee Street, which is basically in front of the Country Market and the Ace Hardware. Do we have someone here to speak on this?
Yes, my name is Jeffrey McComb, here for Eric and Brad Potter.
Jeffrey, we have the packet, but is there anything else you would like to add to this or kind of give us a quick overview?
It was same as we have another location, so it's the same as our other location. And it was a moved address from last year from North Commons LLC, which is Van Etten Company, moving down from North Main to West Maumee in front of the Country Market location there.
Sorry, where was the location last year?
The location was supposed to be at North Commons LLC on North Main Street. However, it did move to West Maumee during the craziness of last year. We approved it in February and I called the office in March to get it moved. I don't think that ever went on record though, so that's why we're here.
And where was it on West Maumee?
Right in front of the Ace Hardware in the Country Market parking lot.
Where
Yep.
you are now, where you are asking?
Yeah. So we're just getting it official this time.
You know, I remember some ZBA members' comments on that location last year, and specifically with regards to the cargo container and its location. I don't think there's a real problem with it, but it did. Isn't that thing like 40 feet long?
It's 40 feet long and 8 feet wide. It takes up 2 total parking spaces.
And kind of stuck out beyond the parking spaces, as I recall, which is what kind of the issue was.
Okay.
I'm wondering if it wouldn't be advisable for us to stipulate that there needs to be some parking cones marking the perimeter of that particular item, because it sticks, at least last year, it stuck out, excuse me, into the traffic lanes.
Oh, okay. And I can double check with our company that drops those containers that they fit it perfectly within the lines that I draw, but I can also pick up additional cones to cone that off. And we do put a 10-foot perimeter around our tent as well, because cars cannot be within 10 feet per state licensure. So it'd be no problem to put a similar parking cone structure around the cargo container as well.
You know, my concern, and I think the concern that other commissioners expressed last year is that it looked like an impediment to the traffic in the parking lot is what it did. So,
Gotcha.
I agree with that, Mike, that it was an impediment.
yeah. So
All right. Would it be
aware of that
better
and mark it
to
as such, yeah.
rotate that cargo container so that it is vertical across 4 parking spaces instead of horizontal across 2, or however you want to look at that?
If your landlord is agreeable to that, because
Okay.
that take up more of their parking, I think that would be a preferable layout for the to accommodate the traffic in that parking lot.
Okay. The other option is I can get 2 smaller containers that are 20 foot each. Although it would still take up 4 parking spaces either way, but then it definitely wouldn't impede traffic flow. So I will talk to the Kennedys and determine which is best for them to make sure that it's nowhere near the traffic flow.
I think
Thank you.
I'm sorry, Mike. I think we talked about this last year, but I don't remember what we said. Why is your closing date so late?
What do I have? Do I have June 15th to July 15th?
Yes.
Yes.
That's just our lease term for setup and tear down. It never takes us that long, but I just signed the lease with the landlords for a full month from June 15th to July 15th. Our actual sales dates are June 24th to July 5th, with tear down on July 7th at the latest.
Okay, one question I have, and I think it's just a clarification. You're requesting a 45 by 45 foot temporary tent, but in your diagram, you show a 20 by 40 tent. So we're looking at the 45 by 45.
Well, so typically we would use a 40 by 40 tent. With everything going on this year, tents are in short supply. So the biggest I could get was a 20 by 40. But I left it on there for the 45 by 45 by the off chance they were able to get something bigger. I figure something smaller, if a bigger was approved, would still be okay. But let me know if that's an issue and we can definitely adjust that.
Okay, I don't see it as a problem. I just wanted to make sure we were all on the same page what we were looking at.
Absolutely. Yep. I always try to get it approved for bigger and then hope for that.
Well, Mr. Chair, I would point out that 45 feet is wider than the available space. The parking, as the applicant pointed out, the parking space is back to back are 40 feet. So each parking space is 20 feet deep. So if you've got 40 available feet, a 45-foot tent doesn't fit in that available space.
And we also put, like I said before, we put a 10-foot perimeter of traffic cones around. And so even within that space, there's going to be 10-foot going out beyond those parking spaces. And so the traffic flow for that would be the one side of the tent would be blocked with cones. So they'd have to go down a different area of the parking lot. At least that was what we did before. And we can also look at that if that's going to be an issue for traffic impediment, to turn that tent to ensure that we're within the parking spaces and it would take up more vertically.
Yeah, so again, the 20 by 40 tent is going to work because they can add that 10 feet on either side and stay within the area which is intended to be parking spaces and not intrude on the drive aisle.
I would say, just looking at the view there, if you do have to move the tent in the drive, you move it to the east, because if you move it to the west, that drive lane is the main one coming in.
And I would prefer that everything they do be within the designated parking spaces as opposed to in the traffic aisles.
I agree, but if they're having that 10-foot radius around it though too, that even creates a little bit more, I don't think it's going to fit into that space.
I can do a quick remap of what that would look like turned with the 10-foot radius. Essentially, let's see if I can pull it up here.
Well, the way it's shown on their drawing with the 20 by 40 tent works.
Yes.
They've got the cones around there. They've got the striped island.
Yep.
Sort of protecting it. Would have been better if it was a real island, but you know, as it's shown on the exhibit that they provided you, it works. But if they were to make it larger, it would not work. And so I think your approval should be for the 20 by 40 tent.
That was going to be my question of what, you know, are we looking to approve what's requested, or are we looking to reduce that down to what he's showing?
I would suggest you reduce it down.
I would say to what's showing.
Jeffrey, is that acceptable to you?
Oh, absolutely. Yep. That's what we have for this year. And those are the tents that we purchased. So that's probably the long-term what we're going to be using. So.
Hey, commissioners, any other questions? Is there anybody else in this Zoom session that has a question or comment?
Yes, Ken Tokars, 110 South Locust. My concerns are that last year, that whether or not you have enough parking for the existing businesses that are there. I frequent the country market and the hardware store on a regular basis, and it was very difficult to get parking spots. And I felt at times that it was unsafe just with the buildings and the blocked vision in the parking lot. The other concern that I have right now is that there's a major construction project going on the south side of town, and that this parking lot in this area, a lot more people are now going over to Country Market because that construction is going on, and that this is going to make it even worse. I think that there's other opportunities, specifically Family Video vacated their spot. And I guess I would like to see you not approve this and have them go and find a different spot.
Thank you. Commissioners, comments?
You know, I think the, as to whether there's sufficient parking there or not, the gentleman raises a good point, of which I've observed myself. On the other hand, it is the property owner that has given them permission to locate there. And if they're not concerned about having sufficient parking, I'm not sure that we should be.
Other comments or questions?
Yes, this is Mayor Angie Heath. I guess, is this specific to the exact then location that it was last year, or could it even be possibly shifted over to, I don't know what direction that is, to the east? Because, you know, my concern when I was driving in and out of there, it was just like, are there going to be children running out? Like that looked just where it was, and it was like right by that entrance coming in to both Ace and to Great Lakes Ace and to Country Market, if it had just been shifted over just a little bit, I felt like it wouldn't have been such a barrier, especially for eyesight of anybody like running out and cars even coming out. Just a thought. I don't know if it's specific to that exact specific parking area that it was in last year. I think it's okay in that lot. And I do think there's enough parking because of that east side. There's always a lot of parking the more east you go in that parking lot, which is why I was wondering if there's even a possibility of it being shifted over there. Because I do know that, you know, they also, I saw they were very busy last year. It's a prime spot. I do understand that. I don't think it would take away by shifting them over, but just a thought, just from seeing it and fear of pulling in there and a child running out or something like that.
This tent is significantly smaller than last year by about half. And I think that it will look a lot better in that area. I'm looking at the aerial right now. I can talk to the Kennedys about moving further away from that main entrance. That is where more of the, like you guys said, the east side parking has a lot more empty spaces towards the back lot, which is why we chose there last year. Whereas the Country Market side is usually pretty full. So I'm not sure they'd allow us to move over to the other side, but this tent is significantly smaller where the tent will not be going into where the traffic flow is for that main entrance.
And Mayor, are you talking about moving over a whole row of parking? Or are you talking about going into the middle of the driving lane? Is there someone that could put the map up, or I could share it?
Fortunately, the map is very specific, is just a segment of the parking lot. It doesn't show the entire parking lot. It just shows where the tent's going.
No, there's
I
a
can
second
pull
map.
up the entire map if that's helpful.
Oh, okay, okay. There we go. Thank you.
Yeah. So do you mean to move it over to the next row of parking east? Because there's an entrance either way.
Oh, I'm sorry. So I would go more towards where there isn't an entrance. I would go more towards Country Market. If that's what would solve, I could talk to them about that. I'm not sure that they'd go for that or not, but it would be further from the main entrances there.
I mean, the other option would be to put the tent where the container is illustrated and have the container go over by Stratford Avenue.
Is that Stratford entrance use less frequency than the one in the middle there?
I think so. And if the container was turned to 90 degrees and went up against the sidewalk on Stratford, it would be, it would take up 3 or 4 parking spots there, but it would become much more out of the way.
Yes. Yep. I do think that there is something right at the corner there.
There's a mail, there's a
I was gonna say it's a
mailbox.
post office box, right? Yep.
Yes.
That's why we didn't put it there last year.
But it's not a drive up mailbox. It's a walk up mailbox.
It's a walk up. Okay. So
Yeah,
we
you can't drive up to it anyway. So.
all right.
And that would put the tent behind that actual island that's already there.
Yep.
And
Creating an additional barricade.
yeah, an additional barricade. And if the container was turned to 90 degrees and then moved over nearer or in the parking area by Stratford Avenue, that would eliminate a couple problems, I would think.
Yeah, I suggest if we go this route, that it be contingent on Chief Massengale reviewing it again.
Absolutely.
Do we have time for all that?
For him to do it tonight,
But yeah, I'd have an updated drawing within minutes after this meeting. So
I could have Eric look at it tomorrow. I'm not sure what his schedule's like, but he'll look at it in the next day or so. So if you want to approve it, contingent on that.
Okay, any other questions or comments from commissioners or anyone else in the session? So we're going down through the criteria. Number 1, temporary use permits compatible with the various provisions of this chapter. It is, the applicant may apply, for one. Are we looking for a 1 year on this, Jeremy, or a multi-year since they were there before?
I suppose we're splitting hairs kind of there because they didn't technically have one last year, so you're supposed to have one and then get get a 4-year, so,
I'd say it's a 1 year.
yeah.
Yeah.
I would agree. I just wanted to make sure we're all on the same page. Number 2, the temporary use is reasonable use of land, compatible with the general plan land use designation and zoning. It is zoned commercial B1. It does allow for selling of, it says tangible items, obviously selling of fireworks. Number 3, temporary use will not impede reasonable use of the land, orderly development of the land in the immediate vicinity. The temporary use will not impede that, especially if we can get the location we talked about. It's evident by the applicant's plans and open storefront location, so it should be good there. Number 4, temporary use shall not adversely affect the adjacent use, building or other structures. It is far enough away from the hardware and the country market, should not be a problem. Number 5, temporary use will not endanger the public health, safety, or general welfare. They have met or will meet all the local, state, and federal guidelines and the fire department approval, so that should not be a problem once those are all met. Number 6, provision for adequate traffic access, circulation, off-street parking, and pedestrian safety have been provided and will be maintained during the operation. That's, in looking at that, especially if we can do the adjustments that were discussed, it would certainly make it better, but even if not, there still seems to be adequate room in there for a temporary use for those few weeks. Number 7, the granting of the temporary use permit is made subject to those conditions necessary to preserve the general welfare, not the individual welfare of any individual. Once again, we allow for fireworks sales on a temporary use basis. Therefore, this is not an isolated case. Based on all that, I would take a motion, and I don't know if the motion needs to include any of the other conditions we talked about or not. I'll leave that up to the person making the motion.
I would move that we approve the temporary use permit as applied for, with the strong recommendation that both the tent and the storage facility be relocated to the east as we discussed. And if so, that also with the stipulation that it be approved by the fire chief.
And that the dimensions of the tent be changed to 20 by 40.
Agreed.
You beat me to it. All right, we have a motion and we have support. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. Jeremiah, roll call vote, please.
Neely,
Or
Strayer,
Support.
Gillespie,
Support.
Jacobitz,
Yes.
Berg,
Support.
and Berthold.
Support.
Motion passed unanimously.
You have your approval, and hopefully you can make those adjustments that we discussed.
And thank you very much.
Okay, scrolling down here. Next item on the agenda, 240 North Main Street. Temporary use, a temporary kitchen. Do we have someone to talk about that?
My name is Jeff McComb, here for Brad and Eric Potter. You got me again.
Oh, okay. Can you kind of give us a little explanation here of what you're requesting? It seemed a little
Yes.
vague on the paperwork.
No problem. When our restaurant was built, the kitchen is very, very small, which we've dealt with for many years. With everything switching to carry out for a while, I was able to lower pricing and streamline our online order and delivery services, as well as people picking up to-go orders. And that is significantly larger than we've ever experienced during the dine-in the first 4 years in operation. Since we're opening, our carryout has not slowed down. In fact, it's stayed exactly the same as when we were shut down. And we're finding it very difficult to continue operating with how small of a kitchen we have. So we're hoping to put in a food trailer that is stationary, that could be moved if it needs to, but it's not intended to move to other places. It'd just be for us to fulfill those carryout orders. And we would place it exactly where we have cars parking to pick up carryout orders now. And it'd come right out of that trailer instead of out of the building. It'd increase staffing and also give us the ability to keep marketing for even more carryout business, because we've stopped advertising the last 2 months. We're not able to handle it in such a small space.
So this is actually a trailer that you're actually going to prepare food in.
Yes.
Okay, my question to, I guess, I'm not sure who this goes to, but how does this vary or how does this fall into the whole food truck discussion that's taking place in the city now?
Per my understanding,
Here, this is actually the way that food trucks would be allowed on private property right now under the zoning ordinance. So currently, our ordinance structure allows for them on private property through this procedure, through a temporary use permit. It does not provide for them on public property. So what happened, if you were at the city commission meeting earlier, what happened tonight is we created a mechanism whereby they can be allowed on public property now. In the future, a set of text amendments to the zoning ordinance has been referred by city commission to the planning commission for consideration that would provide a more streamlined procedure in this situation. But currently, this is the procedure for allowing food trucks on private property, which is a temporary use permit.
Okay, I just didn't want to jump in the middle of something.
To the petitioner or to the applicant, so is this this is a temporary use. Do you see this as a long-term solution? In a few months or in a few weeks, we would hope to be back to regular operations as opposed to strictly carry out.
right, and that's actually the issue. As we are allowing more people into the building, we're busier and we have more food coming out of the kitchen, but our carry out, even now, and maybe it will slow down, but because of the pricing structure, we've actually got a whole new base of customer. And with online ordering, we're competing with DoorDash and others. So it's a whole different customer that I've been getting out of this. And I expect sales to go even higher as capacity limits increase for indoor. And it's going to put a larger strain on our very small kitchen. Any of you that have been in there, you can see right into the kitchen. It's very, very small.
Which is great, and I'm very happy for you. But what do you do come October 15th?
So that would be where we would try to look into. The building was created to be able to add on to the dining room. And so there's been a lot of discussion about it. There's nothing we can do in the immediate for it, but we'd have to eventually expand our kitchen. And this would be a cost-effective option to determine if it's going to be worth expanding our kitchen over the next few months by seeing if these numbers are going to hold the same. But if they do hold the same over the next, even through the summer, it's going to put significant strain to where we'll even have to start not accepting carryout orders after a while to take care of our dine-in customers first. I've got a lot of staff requesting that I do that now.
But I guess, so are you drawing up plans for the kitchen expansion, or?
I can talk with the ownership about that. I know they have an idea. When the building was built, if you can see where the grass area is, that wall is made to come out where we'd expand the dining room and the kitchen would move towards the fish tank where it is now, and everything would just kind of shift forward. So I know they have plans for how that can happen as far as if that's the current plan of what we would do with it. I'm not 100% sure, but this just helps ease into that discussion to whether or not it's worth the expense of remodeling the whole restaurant.
Okay, my concern is that this has to end up being a temporary use. This can't be a permanent.
Permanent fixture.
Right.
Yep.
So it's kind of a trial.
Yeah, it's a trial to see
situation.
if this carryout is going to hold even at 100% capacity, as everybody is feeling better about coming out. If it's any indication since the last shutdown to reopen, my numbers haven't deviated even $100 week per week for carryout. So I think we have just gained a whole new customer base, and it's going to continue. But we'd like to be sure with a lower cost food trailer versus a multi-$100,000 remodel of a restaurant.
Okay, thank you.
How do you plan on providing power to this trailer?
So we had run straight from the building. The power is actually at that back door. I'd say somewhere between 20 feet from the building. I think we have to bury a line. Is that correct? That was my understanding for power and propane, or power and gas.
That would be the building official. I'll have to get with him on that again.
Okay.
His specialty.
Yeah, we had begin running off the trailer's power until we get that completed. And then, which is a diesel generator and then propane, and then everything, all the fixtures inside are able to be converted into natural gas. And we put a slightly longer term solution to get through the summer for that, running straight from the building, and the power goes into the building right at that back door. So it wouldn't create anything that we have to put inside. It's all external, straight to the trailer.
And sewage?
So we wouldn't have any bathrooms or things. And then for water lines, the trailers have a basin tank that get pumped out, and then the grease would go to the same grease trap that we use now for the restaurant, which is across the parking lot.
Okay, thank you.
So this all obviously gets approved by the health department once before you can start operation, correct?
Yeah, I believe it's under the same food truck. We'd have to get it all through the environmental health. I'm not sure how it pertains with it being attached to an already approved location, but I think it's just an addition to the license that we currently have.
Okay, yeah, the reason I was wondering about the power, I was just hoping it wasn't gonna have some cord run out the back door across the sidewalk to the trailer.
Nope, that's not the intent.
I don't know that it's appropriate for us to consider this, but what's this thing gonna look like?
We're gonna make sure that it fits with the current aesthetic of the building. I found a really nice one that was all wood paneled, but I don't think the state of Michigan Environmental Health will approve that because of how much wood was on it. So we'll probably go with more of like a stainless steel corrugated look. So it fits with the industrial theme that is inside at Chomp.
Like a dumpster?
What was that?
It will look like a dumpster?
No, like the corrugated steel siding that you would, not diamond plate. I'm trying to think of something that would have that, just more of an industrial look to it.
Another question I have is where will people pick up the food from this?
So right now we walk everything right out of the restaurant. So there isn't an intention to have any windows because we don't want to have to worry about blocking off parking spaces. So we'd just walk it right out of the trailer to the parking spot that they're in. And then if they go inside the building, I'll just have staff instruct them to go back to their cars and we'll bring it out to them.
Okay, that was my question. I didn't, with the drive right there, I didn't want people roaming across there to pick up their food.
Right. Yep. No, that's why we've been bringing it out to them. We have a pretty streamlined system where you text your information to a specific number and it goes right to our kitchen. They bring it right out.
Do we have anyone else in this session that has a question or comment? Hearing none. Commissioners, any further questions or comments before we look down through our criteria?
Just one. I would be for the temporary use, but I think there has to be a timeline on that where we would come back, and I would hate to see this thing become permanent when we're approving temporary.
Well, Jerry, their application says October 15th.
That's fine.
31st.
31st, excuse me.
That's fine. It's just make sure that that's in our motion, the 31st.
Any other questions or comments before we review? Hearing none. Looking down through our review here, temporary use permits compatible with the various provisions of the chapter. It's a temporary storage kitchen would be compatible in that particular area. 2, temporary use is reasonable use of the land compatible with the general plan. It's in the B3 district. It permits preparing and selling and storing the food on the premises. So that is fine. 3, temporary use will not impede the reasonable use of the land or the orderly development of the land, immediate vicinity. This will not, and it's their land, so that no one else is going to be trying to build right there in that spot anyway. Number 4, temporary use shall not adversely affect adjacent uses, building or other structures. Once again, it's their own structure they're closest to, and all the other structures certainly is enough distance, and so not a problem there. Temporary use will not endanger public health, safety, or general welfare. once again, they have to meet all the local codes, and I'm sure the fire, I don't know if the fire department's involved in this one or not. Are they, Jeremiah?
No, they're not.
Okay, but there's safety there, and once again, the health department will take care of all the things that they need to take care of. Number 6, provision for adequate traffic, access, circulation, off-street parking, pedestrian safety have been provided and will be maintained. The operation or use activity is taking up a single parking spot. There is a sidewalk there, but they're not having people come up to that counter area, so there should not be a problem there. Number 7, the grant a temporary use permit subject to the conditions necessary to preserve the general welfare, not the individual welfare or any particular one. Once again, it's a request that anyone can grant, and they're allowed to have that operation in that particular area. Based on all those, unless there's any further questions, I'll entertain a motion.
Can I jump in really fast? Who was it that you asked was here?
Jerry,
Jerry. Okay, sorry. I thought you said the fire department. Yes, Jerry's here.
Although I think the question was, is the fire department involved in this review? And they do review food trucks. And so the fire marshal will have to, fire chief will have to inspect this when it's set up.
Yeah, that was my question, whether they had a review on this.
I thought you asked if they were here. Sorry, I apologize.
Looking for a motion.
Mr. Chair, given that we found affirmative in all 7 items in finding fact, I move we approve the request for a temporary kitchen for food preparation as specified in the request to run from June 15th to October 31st.
Motion, do we have support?
Support.
Any discussion on the motion from the commissioners? Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Mayor,
Yes.
Koleski,
Yes.
Jacobitz,
Yes,
Feely,
Yes,
Berthold,
Yes.
Berg.
Yes,
Motion passed unanimously.
All set to make more food.
Thank you again.
Last item on the agenda is open to general public comment to the zoning board. Anyone in here, anything they need to say at this point in time? I guess we must be doing a great job. Nobody has a question or comment. Based on that, I will adjourn this meeting, and Planning Commission will be meeting in a few moments for those of you that are here for the Planning Commission.
excuse me, Mike.
Yes, ma'am.
What is the date of our July meeting? Is it the 6th?
Jeremiah?
Nope, that one's moved to the 13th.
Thank you.
All right. Have a good zoning board meeting. We'll see everybody next month.
Planning Commission will convene in about 3 minutes, folks. Let's see, Mr. Taylor, Dr. Love, Mrs. Weatherby, Mr. Watson, Ms. Cotton, Mr. Johnson. Where is Gordon? Oh, there's Gordon. Gordon Goss, how are you, sir? I think we have all of the planning commissioners here. We'll wait just one more minute just to be certain. Mayor Heath, thank you for joining us. Joe, nice to see you. Are there other folks from Giffords Webster joining us tonight, or just you?
It's just going to be me tonight.
Perfectly fine. Just oh, Commissioner Roberts is here too. Yes. Very good. Her name was so long with the commissioner in front of it that it scrolled off of my screen. I couldn't see it all. So. Folks, I think everyone is gathered. We will call to order the June 1st regular meeting of the Adrian City Planning Commission. Jeremiah, would you take the roll, please?
Yes. Jacobitz,
Here.
Love,
Present.
Weatherby,
Here.
Johnson,
Here.
Watson,
He's here.
Taylor,
Present.
Cotton,
Here.
and Gauss.
Present.
All members present.
Thank you, sir. First item on our agenda is consideration of our minutes from our May 4th meeting. A record short meeting, as I recall. Commissioners, I presume you've had an opportunity to review those minutes. Are there any additions or corrections to the May meeting minutes?
I have a correction.
Yes.
It indicates approval of minutes of September 13th, 2021, April 13th, I'm sorry, special meeting. Yet aren't we approving the May 4th meeting minutes?
No, that's
May.
that's what happened at the previous meetings minutes.
But then you say that we moved it to minutes of the March 2nd regular meeting. Did we do two of them at the same time?
These, Don, everything I see.
Did we approve 2 minutes? That's all I'm asking.
No, it should be April 13th.
But we had a meeting on April 13th, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay,
I don't know why that says March 2nd, but
all
yeah,
right. Okay, so, all right.
I see what you mean.
I'm afraid I'm confused by the question. At our May 4th meeting, we approved the April 13th minutes.
That's correct, but if you read what it says there, Mr. Cotton moved that the minutes of the March 2nd meeting were approved.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that should say April 13th.
Yeah,
Got it.
right.
Thank you.
I'm glad I could confuse everybody. Sorry.
Yeah, it doesn't take much, you
Oh,
know.
that was me.
Okay, we have, was that a motion then to approve with that correction, Mr. Taylor?
It certainly is.
Is there support for that motion
Support.
from Mrs. Weatherby? Roll call vote, please. Jeremiah?
Yes. Love,
Yes.
Weatherby,
Support.
Johnson,
Support.
Watson,
Or
Jacobitz,
Yes.
Cotton,
Yes.
Gauss,
yes,
Taylor.
Support.
Should pass unanimously.
Thank you. Next item on our agenda, case 21017. This is a request from the city to rezone 623 Frank Street. Normally, I would ask for the petitioner or applicant to make a brief statement. Jeremiah or Mr. Elliott, care to do so?
Mr. Chair, thank you. This was referred to you by the city commission. This is a city-owned lot. historically been a residential lot. It's vacant right now. City intends to offer it for sale. Its only viable use would be as residential, but as zoned, that would not be a permitted use because, and we'll have some discussion of this, I think, later on when we get to the master plan as well. But as you may know, the Tecumseh Street corridor is all zoned on either side, generally 2 lots deep, for commercial. And as a result, this lot gets swept into that. So we're asking that the planning commission study this and determine whether or not it's appropriate to rezone it to, I think we asked for R4, is that right, Jeremiah?
Yes.
And in order to allow us to sell it, we have interest from both neighbors. Both sides are used residentially. Both are interested in being the owner. We would probably actually take bids on it because it is a buildable lot in and of itself if it's zoned R4.
Thank you. You know, my concern on that is it, as Greg pointed out, is that there's like 5 blocks that run along Tecumseh Street there that are currently zoned commercial, 2 lots deep. And this would create the one exception to that. And some of those properties are used, or certainly are not currently configured to be used for residential.
Mr. Chair, there's no rush. You know, if you want to hold the public hearing tonight and then take your time, as I say, I think that is a topic that's going to be discussed in your master plan work.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that Tecumseh Street corridor, and it would be appropriate to take time and determine what your policy on that is going to be. You know, after holding the public hearing tonight, just table it for the outcome of those discussions. There is quite a bit of interest from the neighbors, but from the city's perspective, there's not really any rush on coming to a conclusion about this.
Okay. Well, I appreciate that. Thank you. Normally, I would go down a criteria of what we use or the criteria that we consider when considering a rezoning. Planning commissioners, what is your pleasure here? Do we want to give this consideration this evening? Do we want to table this for future consideration and discussion after we've reviewed the future land use plan? I mean, on the other hand, contrary to my argument that this is currently zoned as a commercial corridor, I mean, the city makes a good point in that this particular piece of property is located between 2 properties that are currently used as single-family residential.
I don't know. Honestly, I think that they're pretty accurate in stating that it's never going to get used if it's commercial. So I kind of feel like moving forward is probably a good idea. I just don't see it being used otherwise.
Well, unless that whole corridor, which is currently like a 5-block run of commercially zoned property, was to be redeveloped, you know, as a block. Because
there are other vacant lots. I went to this lot. I didn't look. Are there other vacant lots that would fit the same category along that corridor?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
There are some underutilized ones.
Right.
You know, that was the vision for that being commercially zoned was the hope that we would end up having small commercial operation, you know, neighborhood commerce, right. You know, a small convenience store and a dry cleaner and a barber kind of thing. And I guess the question that we need to ask ourselves is, do we ever see that coming to actuality?
Well, I can say I definitely don't think so. I mean, Sunshine Market is over in that same area and it's been closed down for years. So if somebody wanted to put in a convenience store, there's literally one
Mhm.
a couple blocks away and nobody's does anything with that. So I don't think it's gonna get used as commercial.
Okay,
I rather agree with Commissioner Cotton. When I looked at the lot, I thought, would we even want it to be commercial when there are residences on either side? So it seemed to me just quite okay to move forward with changing it to an R4.
okay.
But, Mr. Chair, if we did this and then address the others later on, would this would not be considered a spot zoning, would it?
No, because it's got R4 on at least one side of it already. So
Cool, all right, yep.
if the general consensus is that we would like to go forward with this this evening, then let me just take a quick moment to say the things that we could generally consider on a rezoning. And that's what identifiable conditions related to the application have changed and would therefore justify the proposed change in zoning. It's a vacant lot. It has been a vacant lot for a long time. The city has come to the determination that in order to market this, it would be advantageous to have it zoned residential. Are there any precedences that would be created by either approving or denying the petition, and what are the possible effects of those precedences? Again, it's adjacent to other properties already zoned residential. It certainly wouldn't be spot zoning. I don't see it creating any unusual precedents. The impact of the ability of the city to provide public services and facilities, I wouldn't see that changing at all. Would the requested change negatively affect environmental conditions or the value of surrounding properties? Probably not. In fact, almost decidedly not. In fact, it may even improve them. It would not result in any spot zoning. And what is the ability of the property in question to be put to a reasonable economic use as it is presently zoned? Market conditions have suggested that it would probably be in better economic shape if it was zoned residential. We've heard from the city. Has this, Jeremiah, has this received publication and notification?
Yes.
Okay. Have we heard anything either in writing or by phone comments from folks?
No, only people wanting to buy it.
Oh, okay.
That was about it.
Okay. Is there anybody in the audience that wishes to address the Planning Commission on this particular request?
Ken Tokars, 110 South Locust. The city or Adrian Public Schools recently tried to sell the McKinley property, and I think the minimum bid for that vacant land was $2,500, and nobody was interested in that property. I was wondering if Mr. Elliott could share why there is any interest in this property. What makes this so? Why are people so interested in this when you could get 10 acres for $225?
Ken, I think I can address that for you. The people that are interested in own the properties immediately adjacent to it.
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. Anybody else? Okay. We will consider that the public hearing portion of this particular matter. We've received comments from the city staff. We've reviewed the criteria that we need to consider, and I would suggest that we've found in the affirmative for those. And if we so chose, that we would recommend to the city, we could choose to recommend to the city commission that this property in question be rezoned from B2 to R4. And I would entertain a motion to that effect.
Move to approve. Love.
Support Taylor.
Okay. We have a motion from Commissioner Love and support from Commissioner Taylor in favor of recommending to the city commission that the property at 623 Frank Street be rezoned from B2 to R4. Commissioners, any additional discussion? If there is none, then Mr. Clement, a roll call vote, please.
Gauss,
Yes.
Watson, Weatherby,
Or
Cotton,
Yes.
Johnson,
Support.
Taylor,
Support.
Jacobitz,
Yes.
and Love.
Yes.
Motion passed unanimously.
Okay. So that will go back to the city commission then. Next item on our agenda is case number 21025, a site plan review for a solar array at the Dominican campus. Mr. Hendricks, I presume that's why you're here this evening. Are you speaking to this, or is someone else the spokesperson on it?
Thank you. Actually, Sister Fran Naldonley is going to speak initially on the purpose of the array, if you don't mind.
Sister Fran, please continue. Please go ahead.
Thank you so much, everyone. I really appreciate the opportunity to address the members of the Planning Commission. I am Sister Frances Nadolny. I serve on the General Council, which is the leadership group of the Adrian Dominican Sisters. For a number of years, we sisters have had a vision to live in right relationship with the Earth community. 5 years ago, we set a 6-year direction for ourselves. Among those directives was this one: recognizing the violence against Earth community that places our common home in dire jeopardy and intensifies the suffering of people on the margins, future generations, and all creation, we will sacrifice to mitigate significantly our impact on climate change and ecological degradation. We've been guided by that document for the last 5 years. So we are well on our way to reducing our energy use by 30% by 2022. We have installed an exhaust stack economizer, upgraded our chiller system, converted our lighting to LED lighting, conducted and implemented an energy audit, and our sister residents have made other various lifestyle changes. In addition, we've implemented other practices to address our impact on climate. These include, not always popular, but meatless Mondays, building 2 vermicultures, establishing and practicing land commitments to heal and regenerate Earth. Now we desire to take a new step toward reliance on renewable energy with the building of 2 solar arrays, one to generate electricity for our campus and the other for charging stations for electric vehicles. We know this will not solve global warming, but it does show our Adrian Dominican sister commitment to the steps needed to save Earth. It also provides an opportunity for us to continue our preaching, not only in word, but also by example. So I thank you all for our consideration.
Thank you, Sister Fran. Folks, that's all well and good. What we are really interested in, though, is the physical aspects of the proposal. And so if there's someone to speak to that and very quickly walk us through the diagrams that we've been provided with, we would appreciate that. Scott, is that you?
Sure, that's me. Good to see everybody. Thank you, Michael, and thanks, Mayor Heath, for attending. We have two solar arrays. The main solar array is directly north of the Weber Center, between the Weber Center and Oakwood, and that array will directly wire connect right into the primary power that feeds. And underneath that, and this was kind of a confusion that the fire chief had, underneath that will be grasses, prairie mixes, pollinator plants, all the good things for basically bees and pollen and the environment. And then the solar array to the east in the Kennedy lot or the Regina lot will be approximately 40 by 160. And that will power, Joel, is it 6 chargers? I think 6 car chargers.
Correct. There are actually 6 double-headed chargers, so they have the ability to charge 12 vehicles.
Right. And that's over an existing parking lot. And I reviewed that with Chief Massengale this morning, and he and I went through the parking lot around the array with turning radiuses for fire trucks and everything else. And I believe he was satisfied with everything. The one confusion that he had on his plan review is he was mistaken. He kind of thought we were going to park cars or vehicles underneath the north array that's out in the prairie. We kind of got that all straightened out. I mean, I totally get it. I mean, so that's kind of what's happening.
So one of the arrays though is over a parking lot.
That's the one, the Regina lot, which is the car charging array, and it's over an existing parking lot.
And I kind of wish I did not see in the site plan an elevation drawing. Was there one and I missed it?
Yeah, there was in the set, there was a building or a section, building section of what the array is going to look like.
Okay. Well, I know there was, but I got the impression that it was an aerial view as opposed to a.
Mike, on E6.03,
Okay.
it gives you an elevation or a cross section through the short side of it.
Okay. I got E604. There's E603. You know, but I guess I'm having a hard time picturing. You know, that's what one of them looks like.
No, that'll be continuous for the length of it.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Right. So it'll be
But
that.
you would pull in nose to nose at the column line, I guess.
Okay. Got it. And the fire chief was content with the way this is laid out in this parking lot.
Yes, he and I got online, and he looked at his prints. I looked at mine, and he was most concerned about the clearance on the east end, and it's 30 foot. And he said he'd have no problem getting his tankers around that east end, in the parking lot around the east end.
Okay. In addition to the comments that staff had made in the write-up, Jeremiah, Greg, are there any staff comments to add to this?
No, the only one I had is Eric did call me today and confirm that he's fine. So I know I did have an issue with that in there. He did call me this morning, so.
Okay. Commissioners, questions for the applicants? This is something new and a little unusual for us. I think this would be our first solar array within the city. I would raise a question as to whether this is a permitted use, but on the other hand, it's an ERO, which is pretty wide open in terms of what is permitted there. So I don't think that actually will be much of an issue.
There's actually a significant solar array on a roof in downtown.
Oh. Commissioner, questions for either Mr. Hill or for Sister Fran or for Mr. Hendricks? Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to address the Planning Commission on this particular application for a site plan review? Hearing none. And Jeremiah, other than the fire department, there weren't any staff recommended contingencies on this or conditions?
No, I think the only thing I'd say is, as far as the uses, it's a accessory use to this particular place. They're not selling it. So I think we begin to get solar farms that sell them, then we should be concerned. But if they're generating their own power, it's a use that they're using. So I don't see it being an issue.
Will the charging stations be available to the public?
So right now, no, because there's no means to purchase the power, such as a credit card reader or anything like that.
Okay.
It's something we're kind of exploring, but we haven't set that up yet.
It's strictly for internal use.
Correct.
Okay. Commissioners, having there not being any additional public comment, having reviewed the site plan, staff having reviewed the site plan and found that it meets all of the stated criteria, we would entertain a motion for approval of the site plan as presented.
So move. Taylor.
Taylor and Johnson, was it? Or Watson?
Watson.
Taylor, support, or motion by Taylor, support from Watson. Any additional discussion? Mr. Clement, a roll call vote, please.
Watson,
Support.
Johnson,
Support.
Cotton,
Yes.
Gauss,
Yes.
Taylor,
Support.
Jovitz,
Yes.
Love,
Yes.
Weatherby.
Support.
Motion passed unanimously.
Okay, thank you. This is a very exciting project. Best of luck with it. Look forward to seeing how it turns out. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank everybody. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you all very much.
Next item on our agenda is a presentation of our comprehensive plan draft. Joe is with us from Giffords and Webster. Joe, welcome. Thank you for being here. Just as a kind of a preface, I know that a number of us have had an opportunity to review the draft. I've got like 4 or 5 pages of comments, but I thought that in the interest of time, that we would let, unless commissioners have another preference, that we would let Joe make the presentation. And if we have any, kind of broad, big picture comments, feedback to provide with him, this would be a good time to do that. But I'm thinking at some point, we will want to set a study session or a work session to go over the details. I mean, I don't want to spend the whole commission's or even the public's time reviewing my questions about why this asterisk is here or why the page numbering is the way it is. But they're all important things that we need to get worked out before we finalize this. So with that said, if folks, is that okay with everyone?
Yes.
Great idea, Mike.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so when we're done, Joe, when you're done, perhaps we can at least get a tentative date or time for a work session to go over the details.
Sure.
With that said, we will turn it over to you. Do you need to screen share?
I do,
Should be able
yes.
to share, Joe. I made you co-host.
Okay, thank you. Okay, is that coming through for everybody?
Yes, it is.
All right, thank you. So this is the draft plan, and obviously you've seen some portions of it before, so I will try not to belabor the things that you've seen and we've discussed before. But I did want to just briefly touch on the fact that we've fleshed out the goals and goals with some objectives now, and those are carried into the implementation plan at the end of the comprehensive plan. We have discussed these at length, so I'm not going to go through each one of them, but we touch on kind of 6 categories. One is the community character, one is the quality and variety of housing, sustainability and resiliency, our redevelopment sites, economic development and equity, and complete streets and transportation. So you have now a future land use map that's been put together based on our discussions. And you'll notice some differences from your old future land use map. Some of those are based on things that have happened in between. There have been some rezonings, particularly over on the west side of town. There was a fairly substantial amount of land rezoned to light industrial that's captured on the future land use map. And thanks to Jeremiah for helping us get all those things sorted out. You'll also notice that there are a few more flexible development categories on your map now. One is the River District, which is something that we discussed at our last meeting, sort of emerged from the conversation actually at that meeting. Another is Adrian Mall, and then we have the Tecumseh Corridor as well. marked as a more flexible district. And I will get into some more detail on that a little bit later. When we look at your zoning plan, this kind of equates each thing, each category you see on the future land use map to zoning districts that are currently in your ordinance, or in some cases that are not in your ordinance, such as these overlays for the flexible development. We've added a few focus areas. One is Adrian Mall. You know, we're really talking about diversifying the uses permitted on this land. It's a very large parcel of land. And then, you know, some targeted reuse of the existing building. There's potential in some of those larger spaces for uses that, you know, wouldn't have originally be considered as part of a mall, such as possibly distribution. And then looking at, you know, ways to stabilize and daylight the remaining retail. A lot of malls have turned inside out over the last 10 to 20 years. And that's one possibility for making the uses that are still in this mall a little more visible to the outside world. And then there's a great deal of asphalt around this mall that is for the most part not used. So looking at some uses for that, such as potentially using some of that land as space to diversify the city's housing stock, you know, or possibly some other complementary uses to the commercial uses in the area. The River District, which, as I said, kind of emerged from our conversation last time. The idea there being, we've got a lot of property in motion over there. One of our redevelopment sites is over there. And there's some potential to create sort of a cohesive district over there that you know, is both part of downtown and also interfaces with the river a little bit more than the development that's currently there. Of course, on the west side of the river, obviously there's sort of an industrial type yard over there. And then you have more downtown style development on the west side of the river. But ultimately in the long term, there's a lot of potential to kind of have some river facing frontage as well as street facing frontage that could create a very unique feel to a district over there. And then the Tecumseh Corridor is the other focus area that we've added. You know, as the discussion earlier tonight highlighted, you know, there is commercial zoning down both sides of the street. It's about a mile, and a lot of the land is not commercial or is commercial but is not in use or has transitioned to like a neighborhood service organization type use. So we're really looking at trying to give the city more flexibility as to what can happen in this corridor, provide for a little bit more residential, and just generally allow things to happen in this area in terms of use. And really what we'd be looking for is probably an overlay district that speaks more to the building form in this corridor rather than the uses. That's sort of a top line recommendation of the plan in general, is to kind of move more toward a form-based regulation rather than use-based regulation, which is what the zoning ordinance primarily is now. There is some language about form in there already, but really kind of moving more of the city in that direction. Of course, that's the first of these other focus topics that we broke out into some kind of small sidebar text in the plan. It also discusses the potential use of overlays, the use of the planned unit development going forward. And then there are some little modules about vacation rentals, accessory dwelling units, complete neighborhoods, and sustainability and resiliency has a chapter devoted to it. And then we have our redevelopment sites, which were discussed at the last meeting. So we talked about the kind of non-viability of the old Bixby Hospital East last time, the building itself, and how to redevelop that. So there is a page in the, or a couple of pages in the plan about that site. Now really calling for primarily residential development that's respects the character of the surrounding neighborhood. Then we have the old Bixby Hospital West. Again, that was a replace the building type site. And it's a much, much larger site, of course. There's a lot of potential. And we were looking at probably a mix of different uses on that site per our discussion at the last meeting. And that's what's called for in that portion of the plan. Courthouse Commons was another one where we weren't real too attached to the building on the site. The idea that kind of rose to the surface in our last discussion was that this building has been used kind of hard over the years. So it could potentially be reused. The city has previously prepared a marketing document that actually kind of is built around redeveloping the building in its shell. But nevertheless, for redevelopment, we would not be too attached to the building if someone had a good idea for replacing it. And we're probably looking at primarily residential or kind of off Main Street type uses over there to support the downtown, rather than trying to draw retail foot traffic away from the core of downtown to that portion of downtown. And then finally, the farm building, which was kind of added to the list last time. For the redevelopment ready communities program, you need 3 sites. We've got 4. That's totally cool. You can certainly have 4. And this is an interesting building. It's got a lot of potential. It's not real chopped up inside. It has a very large roof. There's some potential for solar energy. I was kind of excited to hear that last proposal, actually, because it speaks to a lot of what's in this plan. And there are kind of a lot of different things that you could look at even from an economic development standpoint. For a building or site such as this, you could look at potentially having shared spaces or incubator type spaces in a building such as this that could potentially get more local businesses off the ground and contribute to the local economy in that way. But I think there are many different uses that could potentially occupy this building. And there's some potential for work on the site itself to make it a little more pedestrian friendly, maybe a little bit less pavement heavy in the future. And that could also kind of change how people feel about the site. If there was a little more green on it and a little less blacktop. We do have your housing plan. This was provided earlier, but I just wanted to touch on it because we kind of have an emphasis on maintaining the attainability of the housing stock in the city, and a big part of that is over the long term diversifying that housing stock to provide more variety of unit types and make sure that we're keeping costs down, particularly for the kind of barbell bells at the end of the population, people just entering the housing market and people kind of on their way out of the housing market, where the kind of household budgets don't support expensive housing. We want to have options for them, and we want to allow people to age in place if they'd like to stay in the city as well. So we need to have options for seniors. We've updated the residential density map to show it's mostly reflective of zoning. Some of it is reflective of your future land use categories, particularly over here on the east side and west side of downtown. And then elements that are mostly carried forward with just minor adjustments from the last plan are the thoroughfare plan and complete streets and your downtown plan. And those are included in the document. Again, they weren't a large component of this update, but I did want to just touch on the fact that they are in there. And we've included some additional information from the last time, just by way of background for both of those elements. And finally, we have an implementation chapter. And what that does is, I'm actually going to switch over to the PDF of the plan for this portion. I just want to be able to visually refer to the page. So the implementation plan is organized in this sort of matrix format, where under each goal, along with its objectives, we have some zoning action items, which the Planning Commission is going to be the lead ultimately on all of those. We have some advocacy action items, some capital improvement action items, and then kind of an other category for things that don't quite fit any of those categories. And then it allows you to sort of assign a lead body, a time frame, what you think the funding sources might be. You can identify some of those. A lot of those will be referred to in the economic development toolbox that is part of this plan. And then some supporting partners, should there be any, in or even outside the community. And those could be even state agencies or, other sources that are not local. Switch back. And then I did want to talk, I know we're probably not going to be setting any public hearings or anything tonight, but I did want to talk about the process from the point where you're comfortable with the draft on. So let's say we have one more meeting and then you're comfortable with the draft. Your next step at that point would be to request that council release the plan for the 42-day review period. It's 42 days for an update. If it were a new plan, it would be 63. Some communities do opt to do the 63-day period. That would be up to the city if you wanted to do the longer period, and we would kind of roll with whatever you want to do. At which point council would release the plan. And then after that comment period, the Planning Commission would take any comments that it received into account and then set a public hearing on the plan. You'd hold the public hearing and adopt the plan. Council does have the option to adopt the plan. Greg, I don't know if council has any resolutions out there saying that they have to adopt the plan.
No, city commission has not taken a position on it yet, but we also haven't asked them yet.
Okay, all right. So that's kind of the option of the city. So the city, they can adopt the plan if they so choose. And then after that point, you've got an adopted plan, and then we are going to take all your resolutions of adoption, your notices, and your motions, and incorporate those into the plan appendix, and then provide you with your final document. At the time of the public hearing, when the Planning Commission does take a vote, a 2/3 majority of the full Planning Commission is required to adopt a master plan. So try to keep that brief.
As long as we're on that slide, just back up one slide if you would, or two slides, sorry, one more.
Sure.
I was under the impression that this was a new plan as opposed to an update.
As far as I was aware, it was referred to as an update in the RFP. Greg, I don't know if you have a preference on the 63-day versus the 42-day period.
I think we need to treat this as a new plan because when we've done updates in the past, it's simply been an appendix to an existing, it's been, a 10 or 12 or 20 page appendix to an existing plan. We have pretty much started from scratch here. I
I would
think,
agree, I would agree with that. I think, given that we're essentially rewriting every page of the plan, we'll treat it as a new plan and provide for the full notice period.
Okay, yeah, 63 days is, well, I'll make a note that that's what we're going to do.
and I also think, I realize it's optional, but I think having the city commission adopt the plan is essential to it getting the, giving it the importance that it deserves.
Well, I agree with that. I think that it's good to have the buy-in of your legislative body after you have adopted a plan. It doesn't hurt for sure.
No, I think it's, Gordon, do you have a thought on this from the commission standpoint?
I think the commission needs to approve it. Yes.
Absolutely. And in fact, I would think that any action that the planning commission takes would be to recommend it to them.
I would agree.
I think at the point where we ask them to release it for review.
Right.
Ask them the question whether they want to assert their authority also to ultimately approve it. And
Okay, I just wanted, and I didn't mean to get in the way of your questions and comments, but I just thought as long as we had this up on the screen, we could clarify that.
No, it was a good timing. Yeah, we had to talk about it anyway, so might as well get it out of the way.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. And yes, questions and comments. So I know you probably all got some thoughts, and that's what I'm here for.
I guess my initial thoughts would be a wow in capital letters, I guess. There's a lot to chew on here, yet I don't know that you could eliminate anything. I'm absolutely intrigued by the whole river district, especially since there are opportunities of multiple buildings along there now being offered for sale. That's just a really exciting development, as well as the Tecumseh corridor and all the redevelopment properties. So it's just that when Mike was suggesting we're going to have to get together again and talk through all this, it seems like, try as I might, I couldn't get my hands around everything. I suppose everybody else did, but anyway, this is going to take a lot more reading and discussion, I think, but pretty exciting plan.
I feel the same way. There's a lot of information. I would definitely like a little bit more time with it because we haven't really had it that long. And I mean, you pull up the PDF, it's 173 pages. I'd like to dig in a little deeper and take some in-depth notes. So I definitely feel this study session would be a really good idea.
I appreciated the fact that you covered all of the 152,000 opportunities to get funding and staff support from the various agencies. And, that's a big chunk of all that. But now when you get down to the rest of it, that's the real nitty gritty there is, all the districts and everything there. But so maybe it's not 173 pages that we have to totally review.
But, well, and speaking of that, Don, and Joe, my preference, and I certainly am open to other suggestions here, but in particularly with regards to the economic development toolbox chapter and the is it the stabilizing and resiliency chapters?
Oh yeah, sustainability and resiliency.
Yeah. Both of those strike me as pretty much boilerplate. And not that there's anything wrong with them. I'm not finding fault with them, but there's very little in them that is specific to Adrian. They're more of a laundry list of resources. And I would like to see those included as an appendix as opposed to the body of the document. Again, if someone's going to read the document for Adrian content, those don't add anything. They're valuable information. I'd like to have them included, but not necessarily in the body. Does that make sense?
Sure, I understand that. Yep. Yeah, and we've included similar elements both ways before. So yeah, I think it makes sense to kind of get that out of there and kind of allow people to focus more on the ground stuff.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Because, you know, I mean, the sustainability and resiliency chapter in particular is really laying groundwork for the city to go ahead and do a full, you know, resiliency plan if it so chooses in the future.
Yes.
Kind of raising the issue and saying, and teeing it up for the city to carry that forward in more depth in the future.
Well, and the same thing with the economic toolbox. Again, it's
Yep.
more of a list of resources than it is anything that says this is what is important to Adrian. So,
Mhm.
and folks, it's not nearly as long as you think it is. There's a problem with the pagination that it jumps from like page 75 to 140 there someplace. So,
Yeah, in the old version of the draft, there was a skip, like it was a pretty substantial skip. Yeah, we've actually fixed that, but yes, I did notice that when I was going through the PDF that you received.
other questions or comments for Joe or for general discussion among the commission? Would it be appropriate for us to try to set a date for a study session where we could sit down with Joe and his staff and go over the nitty-gritty details? Or would you prefer that we have Jeremiah, do some kind of polling? I would suggest, if we can find a Tuesday evening in the next weeks.
I think that would be good, Mike. I think we all need to sit down and spend time going through it. There's plenty of stuff there. As you noted, I've got a couple of pages of notes that I think, we need to discuss and at least better understand what it is they're trying to tell us.
Yeah, exactly. I think probably a week from today is too soon. I'm out of town on the 22nd. We could look at either the 15th or the 29th. Again, I've kind of arbitrarily said Tuesdays. It wouldn't have to be, but
Yeah, I have conflicts on Tuesdays. Let's see.
Tuesdays tend to be a big planning commission day in the consultant world.
Yes.
Okay.
For Wednesdays or Mondays, those are usually better.
Yeah, I would say
Wednesday,
Wednesday.
Fridays, but those are always good.
Wednesday the 16th. Or wait a second. Let me look at my calendar here.
That one doesn't work for me, I'm afraid.
Yeah. So
how about the 23rd?
I'll be out of town on the 23rd.
So am I, and so is Mrs. Weatherby, I think.
Yeah, I'm out of town too.
This is the 21st work for people?
No.
Monday.
Sorry, guys. You know what? Rather than try to do this tonight, why don't either Jeremiah or I will send out I forget what the app is called.
Doodle
poll.
Pardon?
Doodle
poll.
We'll do a doodle poll and include Joe on that. And if not absolutely everyone can make it, we'll try to work around that. We'll try to include as many people as possible. And we'll try to get it done yet this month because we do want to keep moving ahead with this.
Mhm.
Is that an acceptable approach?
I think that's a better idea.
Yeah.
And trying to set a date tonight. So.
And I invite anyone who has any kind of like markup style comments to go ahead and send those in writing. I'd love to just get those knocked out.
Okay.
We can get them done in a week, so anybody who wants to send that, you can send it directly to me if you have my address, or send it through Jeremiah, however you want to do it. But if anybody has any of that kind of comment, we're still going to be going through it one more time ourselves. But definitely feel free to send that kind of stuff right over, and we'll just jump right on it.
Okay, cool. All the better, Joe. Thank you. Okay, we will do a doodle poll to set a time, hopefully in the next month, during June anyway, for us to get together and review in detail. Please do type up any comments or, in terms of typos or questions in terms of content and context, and send those to Joe as soon as possible, I would think. Anything else? Mayor, city commissioners, have you seen a copy of the draft? Have you? I know Gordon has.
I don't think they have yet, no.
No, tonight was what I was seeing. That was it.
And maybe let us get it cleaned up a little bit more before we pass it around fully. So.
Okay, thanks.
Any other discussion on that? Is there any other business to come before us this evening?
Mr. Chair, I would just take this opportunity, since I see she's stayed for the very end of your meeting, to introduce you to our new Community Development Director, who will be starting June 14th. Angela and Lawrence, she goes by Angie. We have now two Angies to deal with. Taking so
wow.
Please bid her welcome. We're anxiously awaiting her arrival here at City Hall.
Wonderful. Welcome, Angie. We're so I saw your image there, but didn't know the context. Very glad to have you.
Good evening, everyone. Wonderful to be here. Just didn't want to come in cold, so just listening, observing, reading, so that when I do start, I'll be ready to go.
And what again is your start date?
June the 14th.
Oh, coming up quick.
Yeah.
Okay, well, welcome. We're glad to have you. Thank you.
I know Angie from working with her in Farmington Hills, and we'll miss you in Farmington Hills, but congratulations on your new gig in Adrian.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Joe.
Yeah.
Hey, is there anybody in the audience that wishes to address the Planning Commission on any topic?
Yes, Ken Tokars, 110 South Locust. I guess when looking at the plan and you talk about comprehensive, when you include things like the composition of the soil and the mean average temperature, I would have to agree with Mr. Jacobowitz that that's boilerplate and it needs to be eliminated from the plan. I would also like to see someone take a look at past plans and maybe put a compilation together of what we did off of those plans and what we didn't. The interesting thing, I did get a chance to read this. Jeremiah did send it to me, and I did not know about the River District reading through the whole thing. The only way that came to light was through this meeting, and I don't think that something that significant should be buried in this type of a document. To be complete, the plan should include a 5 or 10 year plan for Heritage Park. What are our city leaders planning to do in the future? And more specifically, will we be repaving roads and replacing unsafe bleachers? To be complete, the plan should put a note about Monument Park. There's a group out there that's trying to do some work on it, but I think if you have a master plan, it should say that the city is not doing anything with Monument Park, or it is doing something. I don't see anything about Riverside Park. I don't see anything about Trestle Park. We had all that land that was north of town, which kind of bothers me with the River District, that you gave away land that was prime for housing and you're going to put a dog kennel there. The entrance or the gateway to our community is now going to have a dog kennel there, when we could have had a comprehensive plan that said, no, we're going to put housing there. The comprehensive plan should include information about the cemetery. You got road repair plans, fence rehabilitation, and possibly a note to let the residents know what in the master plan told us to move a maintenance building from the back of the property to the main entrance, and what the city's future plan is in respect to the gas and diesel tanks that are right at the front entrance to one of our oldest cemeteries in the city. Do we have plans for the dog park? Are we going to expand next year? Are we going to put canopies in so the dogs don't get too much sun? We're building a new splash pad. What are the plans for the splash pad? Are there going to be other enhancements for the East Side community. Do we really, going through the report, do we really need to recap demographics and financial information? This can all be found in an Alice report. Under the employment section, you failed to mention all of the City of Adrian healthcare positions that were lost when the city lost its only hospital to Adrian Township. The number one item under economic assessment was housing, with really no plan to do anything for residential housing, just high density housing.
Ken, Ken, as a former planning commissioner yourself, I think you were probably around when we did the last, the 15-year ago comprehensive plan. And so you're already familiar with how these work. Its primary focus is as a land use zoning tool. It is not intended to be a all-encompassing plan for everything the city is doing. The city also has a capital budget plan that covers lots of the things you were discussing. Maybe the title is a little misleading in that it is called a comprehensive plan, but the underlying issue is that it's a comprehensive land use plan.
Okay, I agree with that, but let's talk, if you want to talk about, north of town, why did we, if we had a comprehensive plan, why did we put a dog park there? Right now, we're dumping.
Ken, that's, first of all, that hasn't happened. And second of all, it's not a dog park. It's the Lenawee County Humane Society.
Okay.
And it hasn't happened.
Was that comprehensive plan?
So I would just say to that point that the land use plan that we had is a flexible development up there. So no, it did not call for a dog park, but it is a flexible, or not dog park, a humane society. It is flexible in that what developments can be there depend on what come along and if they fit the area.
Okay. And I guess I thought that this was public comment and I could make whatever comments I wanted to make uninterrupted. Could I finish?
Within a certain time frame, yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. One of the number one item under economic assessment was housing, with really no plan to improve housing, only a reference how to dump more money into the Field of Dreams DDA. The economic toolbox looks like it was cut and pasted from a state of Michigan website for economic development. The city only cares about dumping our tax dollars into DDA properties. The city spends millions of dollars to reconfigure the streets downtown. When a new board comes in, they replace the street lights without creating special assessment districts and install brick paver sidewalks, while residential properties foot the bill for curb and gutter when the road is rebuilt. The SWOT analysis in the report lists one of our strengths as colleges and universities. Can someone explain why this is a strength for the city of Adrian? The college does not pay property taxes and consistently takes properties off the tax rolls while more or less servicing the county. How does the city benefit when the colleges have their own restaurants, bars, doctor's offices, hairstylists, and private entrances off the interstate to allow parents and students to bypass the city of Adrian completely? Under restaurants, the plan tells the city that people go to Fiesta Ranchero in Madison Township and spend their dollars in Madison Township at Marshall's, Walmart, and Ulta. Per the report, we need to spend more money on bicycling opportunities. Where is the money coming from when those bicycles are traveling on million-dollar roads? Following this logic, we should be walking on marble-seated sidewalks. The report references historic community character. Where is that character when we allow businesses to paint buildings any color, paint buildings historic colors representative of San Francisco's Painted Ladies, and allow windows downtown that do not meet the State Historic Preservation Office guidelines with respect to glass sizes and window embellishments? The plan references roads, but it does not go into enough detail, and more specifically, when the roads will be resurfaced. I agree that this is in regards to zoning, but it seems to be more comprehensive. That's why I even question that this is going in front of the planning commission, where it does seem more of a community thing
And I think that 63 days is not long enough. If you're going to talk about creating a river district, you should create one over several years. The city of Ypsilanti created a river district with all outside consultants. It was a $15 million project that the river district has never been built. So I really ask you to shy away from doing anything too quickly. Thank you.
You're muted, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else? Thank you, Ken. If there is no other comments or other business to come before us this evening, then we are adjourned. I thank you all very much for your time, and you'll hear from me in just, or from Jeremiah in just the next couple of days relative to scheduling a work session. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.